Good afternoon, and welcome to our very first Prospective PhD student webinar. My name is Liz Meyer. I'm the Associate Dean of Students and an Associate Professor in the Educational Foundations Policy and Practice program. Also co-hosting the webinar with me is our Director of Admissions, Mallory Barnes, and she is going to be moderating the chat and the Q&A portion of the webinar. So I'm going to stop my video so you can get the full screen of the presentation. We're so excited you all are joining us today. And basically, I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes, give a basic overview, answer some of the frequently asked questions, and then we'll have time after that to respond to any questions from you all out there in the audience. This webinar is being recorded, and everybody who registered for the webinar will receive a link so you can watch it in its entirety after it is over. So, basically tonight I'm going to cover information about how to research doctoral programs, things to be looking at, and questions to be asking. I'm also going to talk about specific CU Boulders programs, things that you should know about our programs and how they're different. I'll talk a little bit about the application information, then some timelines and general program milestones that you should keep in mind as an applicant to our program. And then some of the supports and experiences that we're really proud of that we think distinguishes our programs from some of the other PhD opportunities out there. And then speak a little bit about some of the pathways our graduates have taken after the PhD program. And then we'll have time for the Q&A. So in terms of exploring PhD programs, one of the things that we think is important for you to consider is generally what are the strengths and the reputation of the college and school you're interested in? Do they match with the kinds of experiences you are most interested in getting, and how competitive are they? Secondly, once you've chosen some schools or colleges that are interesting, you want to think about the program area that you want to emphasize in your application, because most of them, and do we, require you to select a specific program area to apply to. So you want to think about, are you interested more in learning sciences and human development? Are you interested more in educational equity and cultural diversity? And that way you'll have a better sense of the kinds of emphases you'll be developing in your doctoral study. Once you're sorting through the program areas and you've maybe narrowed them down to 2 that seem like a strong interest to you, the next thing is to really look at the strengths of the faculty in those program areas. And that should really help you narrow down to which program area is going to be the best fit for you. Look at some of the publications of the current faculty members, some of the current research projects they're involved in, some of the teaching that they are engaged in, because those kinds of things will help you think more specifically about the kinds of faculty supports and the kinds of expertise you'll be able to draw from if you're a student in that program. Finally, you want to look more specifically about who might be the best advisor to support your interests and your development as a student. And that really will help you focus in on the kinds of expertise that you want to develop. And it's really important to think about this because in your personal statement, it can be really helpful for program areas to hear who do you see your work aligning with? What kinds of existing research programs and areas of expertise do we have that are going to support your perceived future interests as a scholar, as a researcher. So you can go on to our website and look at the faculty members' bios. They often link to their CV or their own personal websites where you can read more about their current projects. Once you've researched programs, you can look a little bit more specifically at our programs, and I want to talk a little bit about each one because some of them are hard to tell apart just by reading a few sentences on our website. So first we have what's called curriculum and instruction, and under that area we have 3 different strands. One is literacy studies, one in math and science education, which is being renamed STEM education, but it's currently, you will see it listed as math and science education. And third is called Rotate, or Research on Teaching and Teacher Education, which is also being redesigned and renamed to be Teacher Learning, Research, and Practice. And this will really be the area for folks who are interested in teacher learning, teacher education, teachers' professional practices. Outside of curriculum instruction, our next program area is called EECD, which is being renamed to more accurately reflect the focus and expertise in that program area. It's going to be soon to be officially named Bilingual, Bicultural, Equity, and Education. And that really does focus on emerging bilinguals, the strengths of language acquisition, and working in linguistically rich and linguistically diverse classroom settings from pre-K up through grade 12. Then we have Educational Foundations, Policy and Practice. That's a program area that really looks broadly at education from a much more structural lens. We have sociologists, philosophers, historians, lawyers, feminist theorists. So we really take a much more kind of social sciences, structural analysis of schooling and systems of education. Then we have our Learning Sciences and Human Development program, which used to be called Educational Psychology, but that was recently renamed to reflect emerging field of study, which is learning sciences, which takes a more sociocultural lens on learning and focuses much more on out-of-school learning as well as participatory action and youth organizing. It looks at learning in all kinds of different contexts, not just in schools and classrooms. And finally, we have our Research and Evaluation Methodology program, which is for students who are really, really interested in strengthening their expertise in program evaluation, large-scale quantitative analyses to understand systems and functions in education. And we have a really excellent faculty with broad areas of expertise around different types of research and evaluation methodologies. So as I mentioned, it's helpful to be able to look at our faculty list to get a sense of who might be your advisor, but we have so many different people involved in our School of Education, it's not always easy to tell who can serve as an advisor. So if you go to our faculty webpage, you'll be able to identify anybody with the title of an assistant professor, an associate professor, or professor. Those are tenure track faculty and who all have the ability to take on students as advisees in their programs of study. We also have an incredible wealth of expertise and other folks who do important work in our school, who serve on committees, who teach classes, who conduct research, but they just aren't in these official faculty lines. And so all these other people, research associates, research professors, faculty affiliates, master teachers, visiting professors, or faculty who are appointed in the School of Education by courtesy, they can be part of your committee. They might be teaching classes, they might be leading research projects, but they wouldn't necessarily be your primary faculty advisor. So you will be able to draw on their expertise, but it's just important when you're applying to understand that there's this small group of people who serve as advisors. So when putting together your application, we often get questions about the personal statement because the prompt is quite broad and there's very little structure offered to you. We really want you to take this as an opportunity to tell us why it is you are interested in pursuing a PhD. What questions and topics are you most interested in focusing on? We're not looking for a deeply refined research question or a dissertation proposal. We expect that you will develop it in your first few years here, but we want to have a good sense of what does this PhD mean to you in your own career trajectory? What questions, what passions, what interests are pushing you into higher education to take this on for the next 4, 5, 6 years of study? We encourage you to keep it to 3 to 5 pages because we do have many applications to read. The better we can get a sense of who you are and why you want to study with us in a very concise bit of writing, the better it is for your application. It doesn't need to be dense with citations and research references, but it is helpful for us to understand the kinds of scholars and the kinds of research that you have found interesting and that you want to pursue further while you're here. The GRE scores are required, but they need to be submitted by the application deadline. As well as there's one final step where you have to say if you want to be considered for certain scholarships. And it's pretty much just a checkbox on the application if you feel like you would be competitive or are interested in being considered for these scholarships. The timelines, as you all are well aware, the application deadline is December 1st, and if you do not have it submitted by that time, we will not be able to review you for admission for the next cycle. Once these applications are submitted, our faculty will be reviewing them carefully and making our round of finalist decisions. We will be narrowing it to a group of finalists who will be invited to come to campus in February for the finalist weekend. Those who are finalists will receive notification in mid-January. So I encourage you to be optimists and save that date on your calendar, February 22nd and 23rd, and you will know by mid-January. If you are invited, we do provide airfare and lodging to everyone who confirms participation in that event. We find that to be a really important event where we get to know you better, you get to know this program better, you get to interact with current and future doctoral students as well as the faculty that you would be working with. After the finalist weekend, we work pretty quickly to determine our final offers of admission, which will be sent out in early March. And we ask for confirmation pretty soon after that. And so that way we can determine if we have any room off of our waiting list to admit any other students. Then we are excited for your confirmation. The next thing it's important to think about is transitioning to life in Boulder as a full-time doctoral student, because everybody who comes to our program are full-time doctoral students. So 2 weeks before classes start, we offer what is called Math Camp, and it's meant to help get folks ready for our quantitative method sequence, which is oftentimes the first time people have had to do quantitative reasoning in a long time. So that's why we offer this little bit of a refresher. And it's also a really great way to get yourself gently oriented into life at CU and get connected to the other students in your cohort. We had 90% participation this year, and all the students said it was a really valuable use of their time. Even those who felt confident in their quantitative reasoning skills, they really appreciated the exposure to their cohort and the content that was presented in that math camp. We also then offer an orientation, a full day orientation the Friday before classes start. That's for just School of Ed students. But you should also be aware that campus offers a graduate student orientation the Monday, the week before classes begin. And so it's important to really begin thinking about when you would be transitioning to life in Boulder so you can take advantage of these early experiences. And then late August is generally when classes begin. Some basic program milestones, just so you can understand. Students who are granted admission are guaranteed 5 full years of funding. So that is the standard timeline that most students work towards. The first year is a highly structured year because everybody's new, and you take 3 courses a semester, and most of them are taken with your first year cohort students. You do have some flexibility. You can choose to take one of your method sequences in the second year if you prefer. And then your second year, you continue taking program-specific courses and finish up your core if you delayed one of your method sequences. And then by year 3 is when you will be taking your comprehensive exams. And once you pass that, you officially become a PhD candidate and start working on your dissertation proposal, which is your specific study that you plan to complete. And then by your 5th year, you will have completed your data collection, your analysis, your writing up, and you will be defending your dissertation and graduating. Some people vary from this for various reasons. It might be family situations or other kinds of things that might change your timeline, and we do work with students who might need some flexibility around that. As I mentioned, we do have some supports and experiences that are unique to our program. We have the Math Camp, which we think is a really important and helpful experience to most of our students who come in. We do offer these orientations, which are highly recommended because they give you access to all kinds of supports and offices and networks that are offered through the graduate school across campus, as well as here in the School of Education. We are a fairly small program, so you will get lots of contact with your advisor. All of our first year students currently are paired with their advisor doing a first year research experience. So you get close mentorship, close advising their very first year here. You do come in as a cohort, and you are provided supports and resources as a cohort, so you get a small community of fellow students you get to connect with during that first year. We also meet as seminars, as program areas for about 5 times a semester. We have lunch together that's fairly informal. It's first, second, third year students, and sometimes the more advanced students drop in, as well as all of the faculty in the program. And so it's a really nice way to learn more about higher ed, conferences going on, things about, you know, improving your CV, all kinds of things about professionalization into working in higher ed. And as I mentioned, all of our programs, all of our students who are admitted are fully funded. And that means you work 50% of time on various assistantships. So as I mentioned, in your first year, one of those apprenticeships will be with your advisor for your fall and spring semesters. And then you'll have a second 0.25, which is about 10 hours a week, working on another research project, or maybe TAing a class, or possibly even teaching a class. So throughout your 5 years here, you will be working on various projects, and we ensure that all of our doctoral students have experiences on research projects, teaching, and getting to work closely with your advisor and other faculty who can mentor you into whether it be offering professional development for educators, working with youth organizing groups, all kinds of really amazing applied research and teaching experiences. As I mentioned, our graduates pursue lots of different opportunities after completing their PhD. The most obvious one is the one pursued in the academic track, where you might pursue a tenure track position in a R1 or a top tier research university, or in a teaching intensive college or university. You might also pursue other kinds of tracks in academia that are intensive research positions, where you might be doing a postdoctoral fellowship. You might be working as a research associate on somebody's research project. You might be working in another capacity in higher education. We also have folks who have gone on to work at think tanks, take on leadership positions in school districts, work for state departments of education, working for non-governmental organizations, as well as working as consultants or independent contractors in their area of expertise. So you can see that our PhD program definitely positions you well to take on a whole host of possible futures once you've completed your advanced study. So that is the formal portion of the webinar. And now we are going to take some questions using the Q&A tool. So I see that there's some questions already in the queue. So the first one said that you're interested in studying with one of the professors who has a by courtesy appointment. Can someone with a by courtesy appointment act as an advisor? No. You need to select somebody, or you need to be prepared to work with somebody who is officially rostered within the School of Education. The by courtesy appointments, they can absolutely co-advise. They can be members of your committee. You can work with them on research projects, and they are often very excited to take on and mentor students, but you may not, they will never be assigned to you as the primary sole advisor. Another question about resources or support for relocation and housing in Boulder. So during the finalist weekend, we do have panels with current graduate students, and we provide you folders of information because we do have an off-campus housing office here on campus. And we do have students who live in Denver, who live in Longmont, who live all around the surrounding areas, who can talk to you about the pros and cons of living in various parts of Boulder. So the campus and our school does provide good information and resources about relocation and finding housing close to the university. Okay, so the next question is, what is the turnaround time once you have been accepted? How quickly must you make a decision once you've been accepted to the program? So it's usually about 4 weeks. We send offers of acceptance usually around mid-March, and we ask for confirmation usually by mid-April. And if we need to do that in order to allow people in off of the wait list if you are choosing to decline our offer of admission. Do you have to know your area of study before applying for the program? You need to commit to a program area, but you do not need to commit to a question or a topic. So it is important as you apply that you focus on applying to a program area that has a broad enough overlap with your current interests and curiosities that it will continue to support and nourish you as you refine your interests and choose a focus of study. So that's why it's really helpful to go and look at faculty bios. Who are the professors rostered in that program area? What are the research they're currently doing? What are the publications they've recently finished? To give you a good sense of the kinds of projects and the kinds of questions that are common in that disciplinary area. Another question is about, does the finalist weekend include interviews or play a role in determining whether a finalist gets an offer? Generally, most people who are invited to the welcome weekend have already demonstrated that they have met our criteria for admission. Sometimes in further conversation during the visit, it is found that it's not actually a good fit. And so there are a few people who are invited to finalist weekend who do not get an offer of admission, but there are no formal interviews per se. So it's kind of complicated because it's not officially an interview, but it is a final step in ensuring that if we make an offer of admission, that it is going to be a good match for you and the program area that you've applied to. The next question is about collaborating with other departments. So for someone who's interested in theater education, would they also be able to work with the theater department? So most of our program areas actually strongly encourage you to take classes outside of the School of Education, and many of our students do so and develop areas of expertise, whether it be in science education or Institute of Cognitive Science or Women's and Gender Studies. So yes, we encourage you to take classes outside the School of Education. It might be more difficult to secure research assistantships or other kinds of formal opportunities because each of those departments prioritize supporting the students who are in their programs, but we absolutely encourage you and create opportunities for you to be able to do that. Okay, the next question, are there opportunities to TA outside of the School of Education if you have a master's degree in those areas? So yes, there are definitely opportunities to TA outside of the School of Education, and we want to make sure that you are positioned well for those opportunities. However, you're much more likely to be able to teach like a science methods course within the School of Education or act as the science content expert in one of our School of Ed classes. However, sometimes those program areas will reach out to us and ask us if we have doctoral students who have expertise. So those opportunities do exist. They're not frequent, but for students who take the initiative and develop relationships with faculty across campus, they definitely do make themselves available. Another question about welcome weekend. Oh wait, sorry, I've got to scroll back up. Is there a specific PhD program at CU Boulder focused on student affairs or higher education leadership? So our PhD programs do not currently focus on higher education leadership. We have a master's in higher education, but we don't currently have a PhD in higher education leadership. We do have students in our program now who have a strong interest in higher education, and we do have some faculty who can support those interests, but I would not say it is a primary emphasis of our programs. Another question is if the advisor has to be from the College of Education. So yes, when you apply to our PhD program, upon the admissions decision, we assign you a preliminary faculty advisor in that program area. That is a preliminary advising assignment. Oftentimes, there are changes that happen after the first or second year because interests evolve, or sometimes people even change program areas. That happens more rarely, but it can happen. But yes, you will be assigned a faculty advisor who is in the program area you applied to at the point of admission. If a prospective student attends the finalist weekend, what determines if they are offered admittance? As I said before, if you have been invited to the finalist weekend, you have already met most of our criteria for admission. The faculty then come together and determine how many of the finalists can we fund and how many can we take on as faculty. And so at that point, it becomes a much more individualized decision by faculty members who are willing to take on a new student, and if we have enough grant funded and other kinds of work projects available to admit those students. So it's really not so much about how you all present yourselves during the finalist weekend, and it's much more about what the School of Ed faculty has capacity for in order to be able to extend those final offers of admission. The next question is about the Miramontes Doctoral Scholars Program and where you can find more information about that. The information is basically, it is A doctoral program that partially funds your first and fifth year of study. It is a small group of students from each cohort admitted get awarded these doctoral scholarships, and we prioritize students who have demonstrated a strong commitment and have a long history of working with underrepresented communities. And so if that's something that you believe is part of your history, it's something that would be important to emphasize in your statement for that scholarship. The next question is about, if you have a graduate degree, will those transcripts also be considered instead of GRE scores? They will not be considered instead of GRE scores. We look at your application holistically. So we're very interested on your personal statement as one of the things that we consider most strongly. But the GRE scores do have a function in helping us determine if you are going to have the writing skills and the quantitative reasoning skills necessary in order to be successful in our program. The next question is, what are the professional backgrounds of past PhD candidates? We have a lot of former teachers that come to us who have been really passionate about working with their students and working in schools, but felt like there were certain issues they wanted to be able to impact more directly through research and through developing greater expertise in that area. In addition to former educators, we have folks who have worked in higher education, whether it be in student affairs or admissions or writing centers, for example. We also have students who have had other kinds of non-traditional educational experiences, like in museum education or working in after-school programs, youth organizations, LGBT advocacy organizations, those kinds of things. But we find that our graduate students are a little bit more mature than some of the other graduate students because they have usually had 5 to 10 years of experience in an education-related field before making the decision to enter into or pursue doctoral study. The next question is, what if you're interested in a program but the professors don't match your areas of interest? Well, that would give me pause about if that program is the right match for my own interests. Because the faculty in that program area are the ones you're going to be working with most closely, if they don't even have a general knowledge or tangential connection to your area of interest, then that might not be the right program area for you. We do have, 5 to 6 faculty in most of our program areas. So we do have some good breadth of expertise in each of these program areas. But just because they haven't published in your area of interest doesn't mean they don't have knowledge or expertise around it, because we all are generalists to some degree. And you have to understand that when you're coming to do doctoral study, you are coming to do something that nobody else has done before. So by definition, you will be having to do something unique that no other faculty member in your program area has done. So what you're looking for is faculty who have research interests that seem complementary to the kinds of questions that you are interested in pursuing, but not necessarily exactly in line with what you want to do, because then it will be harder for you to distinguish what your contributions might be and how they are different from what already exists. The next question is about how many students are admitted to the cohorts, and are they specific to a chosen concentration or multidisciplinary? So our cohorts range in size from 15 to 20-ish, and it really varies on each program area and how many students they choose to admit that year based on their current faculty's capacity to support graduate students. So some program areas may only admit 2 to 3 students in a year. Some program areas may admit 5 to 6. And the cohort that you enter in with is everybody admitted to the School of Education across all program areas. So they're multidisciplinary in that way, but our cohort is distinct to the School of Education. And so it's everybody who is interested in some element of educational research. Another question is about, in addition to other professors I'm interested in working with, would it be advisable to mention the professor by courtesy in your statement of purpose? Honestly, faculty have mixed feelings about naming names in statements of purpose. Sometimes it's helpful to make clear who you see your work matching with or aligning to, but it's not always helpful to name names. It does help when we're trying to make matches. If we think you've seen a match and we agree that that seems to align with that faculty member's interest. And it does show you've done your homework and you understand the strengths of our school and the diversity of supports that you would receive here. So I wouldn't say don't do it, but you don't have to do it either. But if you can show that you've done your homework and you know the kinds of people who are doing work aligned with yours, it is helpful to show that you are knowledgeable about the folks who are doing work that aligns with your interests. Next question is about, should you reach out to potential advisors? And again, faculty have mixed feelings about this. Some folks appreciate having the opportunity to contact students and talk to them a little bit further. Some faculty don't feel it's equitable to be able to do that because not all students know to make an attempt to reach out to a faculty advisor. So what I would say is if you're highly motivated and you really want to work specifically with one person, it doesn't hurt to extend an email and ask if they would be open to a meeting or a phone conversation. But do not take it personally or do not take it as a negative sign if you don't get a reply or if they decline your request. So it doesn't hurt to try, but don't expect a response. Does the School of Education offer support to students when trying to travel to and present at conferences? Yes. Every year you are a student here, up to 5 years, there are travel funds that you may apply for, depending on if you are the first author on the paper, if you're a co-author on a paper, if it's your first time visiting a conference or just attending a conference. So yes, every year there are funds available, both from the School of Education and from the graduate school. So we want to make sure it's as accessible as possible for as many students to participate in that part of graduate education. Can you explain how the CLASP or other certificates support the doctorate? So yes, many of our students pursue additional certificates that are offered by programs outside of the School of Education. We have certificates in women's and gender studies, in critical theory, in quantitative methods and reasoning, in cognitive sciences. So many of our students, when they have to take those classes outside of the School of Ed, choose to take classes in a particular stream so they can add that certificate onto their course of study. And so it is something that can make you stand apart from other folks when you're looking for jobs, and also refine and develop an expertise in a discipline that's related to but outside of the School of Education. Next question is if we have opportunities for students to do assistantships in order to work on their dissertation, and would you validate a study of that nature? So we do have a few very competitive fellowships that allow you to have your 5th year fully funded, where you're not working on research projects or teaching, but you're using that 5th year solely to write. So that's what the Miramontes Fellowship offers. There, we have Chancellor's Fellowship that when your application is reviewed, the most competitive applicants are advanced to the campus to be considered for those fellowships. There are additional external fellowships you can apply for once you're here through our professional associations that also offer those kinds of funding. And with your advisor, they can help you seek out those opportunities as well. Next question is if prior research experience is indispensable to having a strong application. No, actually, you do not have to have prior research experience to be admitted into our program. What we're really interested in is people who have deep professional experiences and strong interests that align with the expertise and the commitments of our School of Education. We expect to prepare you to become researchers. On the other hand, if you have done some research experience, it is valuable to speak about that in your personal statement and possibly have a letter of reference from the person you worked for, because we do really want to learn if you are able to take initiative, if you're a critical thinker, if you can write clearly, and these are often skills that you can develop through the course of a research assistantship. Another question is about if there is a minimum GRE score and how heavily is that considered in the application. So we do not have a minimum GRE requirement because we are a school who actually understands some of the shortcomings of standardized tests. However, our campus does have that requirement that we use it as a factor for consideration. So what we do look at is if the scores raise some concerns about your readiness to be successful in graduate level writing, reading, and quantitative reasoning. So it is considered, But like I said, the personal statement is something that we consider much more strongly, and as well as your professional experience and your letters of reference. We want to see that you're somebody who is committed to the course of study, that can take initiative, that can think carefully, and can work in collaboration and in community, and shares our School of Education's commitments to justice, equity, diversity, and democracy in schools. So I've already answered the question about travel funding to present at conferences. So yes, we do. What percentage of students have scholarships and what is covered with the funding? So what I meant when I said 100% of our students admitted are provided a full funding package, that means we only accept full-time students and we only accept students that we can fully fund. So a full funding package means you get a tuition waiver and a graduate assistant stipend, which is part of the 50% assistantships that you are assigned to do during your 5 years with us. So it is not a comfortable wage, but it is a living wage. And it is definitely something that would allow you to complete your program without having to take on student loans and those kinds of things. So no, there is not a wide range of funding packages. They are similar because we try really hard to ensure equity and to improve everybody's access to education. And the ones that are a little bit more competitive, the ones that offer the 5th-year writing package, those are actually specifically for those people who are working with underrepresented communities, so we can ensure that they have the time and space to elevate work that has not historically been supported or funded by educational research. I have a question here about the Learning Sciences PhD. Can I elaborate more on that program's focus and the individuals who are accepted into the program? So as I mentioned earlier, learning sciences emerged out of educational psychology, but it is a more socio-cultural understanding of learning, so learning in context. So many of the folks who pursue a learning sciences degree are really interested in how learning happens as it is situated in a particular context, and learning in non-traditional settings. So we have people who are doing museum studies, people who are working with youth organizing groups, people who do youth participatory action research. So the learning sciences, as well as people working with teacher learning, it can really be any kind of interest you have in how does learning happen? How do you design for better learning, whether it be in a 3rd grade classroom, whether it be in a professional learning situation, whether it be in an after school or alternative education setting. The next question is about the personal statement. Is it necessary to include citations and references, or is it sufficient to identify some particular issues in education that interest you? I would say it is stronger if you are able to name certain scholars or certain research articles that have inspired you and that have strengthened your understanding of a certain topic or an issue. It's okay if you don't do it, but it does demonstrate to the admissions committee a certain level of understanding and a certain development of interest in a topic if you are able to cite a few. We don't need a list of 20 references, but even just 3 or 4 scholars that you find important or influential can really help us get a good understanding for your areas of interest and if we'll be able to support them well in our program. The next question is if there's an opportunity to get a master's in mathematics while working on a PhD in mathematics education. I do not believe so. Because you are a full-time student in our PhD program, in order to satisfy the requirements of a master's program, you would need to take so many other classes that it would significantly slow your progress to PhD, and it would not be something that we would be able to fund. So that is not something that I would anticipate, I would not recommend. I'm sure there might be students who are highly motivated that might be able to make it work, but it would be a complicated road. What can help set you apart from other applicants? I think having a really well-written personal statement, something that gives the application or the admissions review committee a good sense of who you are, why you want to get a PhD, and why CU Boulder is a good fit for you. If you can answer those 3 questions really clearly, without too much jargon. We don't want overly academic language. We really want people who can write clearly and get to their point effectively. We also really look for, in your resume or in your CV, what other experiences have you had that are going to help enrich our own community in the School of Education, because we look for people who will be able to teach our undergraduate classes, who are going to be able to enrich the knowledge and the experiences of the other students in your cohort. We really do look for all these other kinds of strengths. So making sure those unique things that you've done in your life, in your professional world, are clearly spelled out in your resume and in your personal statement will really help you stand apart. And the next question is if PhD students are supported or encouraged to apply for external grants or support dissertation projects. Absolutely. We really think that's an important part of your development as a graduate student, particularly if you're pursuing a career in academia, to get experience writing grants and to pursue funded opportunities. And we do announce those on our listservs. We offer workshops on how to write for those, and want to make sure you have access to those opportunities. The next question is about TAing in other departments. Do we collaborate with other universities in the area, and is it possible to TA at another close by university? No, because the funding is directly tied to our campus. We can easily work out funding arrangements with departments or other colleges, but it does not work smoothly if you're working at another campus. There have been unique opportunities where you've been able to work on research projects that are at other campuses, but TAing or teaching in other campuses is exceedingly rare. If you provide citations in the text of your statement, do I need to include a reference list as well? Yes, I would recommend including citations in APA format if you embed them in your personal statement. But it should not read like a graduate research paper. It should be a personal statement. Next question is somebody who's applying for the EFPP program but is drawn to work coming out of CU Engage. Is this a possible crossover or interest you should share in your personal statement? Yes, I mean, CU Engage is directed by a faculty member who is in learning sciences, and so there is a much closer connection between folks in the learning sciences program and CU Engage. However, there are always opportunities for excellent students who have a strong interest and strong expertise to be able to work in other SOE-related programs. And the next question is, do most applicants have a master's degree? Yes. It is very rare for us to admit a student directly into the PhD program without a master's degree. It does happen, absolutely, if you have the experience and if you've had other ways of developing your research and writing skills that seem to prepare you well for the PhD. It does happen, but it is rarer. And like I said, most of our students have much more professional experience than in some of the other disciplines you might see. But we're really excited to welcome a strong and diverse class of students. And so I hope that I've exhausted the questions in the Q&A. So if there's any last questions before we wrap up the webinar, I don't see any coming in. So I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening and for your very strong interest in our program. As I said, you can really reach out to the faculty members in your program of interest because they're going to be able to answer more specific questions better than Mallory or I can. However, if you have a general question, we are both happy to try our best to answer it for you. But my best advice is to look at the website first. And if you cannot find the answer on our website, then you can reach out to a person and we'll do our very best to answer your questions. So thanks for spending some time with us tonight, and we look forward to reviewing your applications.